Good evening to all present, and thank you all for joining. We are excited to welcome you to today's informative and innovative webinar on sustainability, energy transition, and the importance of Sustainable Development Goals, also known as the SDGs. My name is Vinayak. I'll be comparing the program today and moderating the question and answer session at the end. I request you all to please enter any questions you may have regarding today's topics, as well as the speakers and the information they share, as well as regarding IESD in the comment box available on Zoho. Today's excellent program has been organized by Indian Energy Skill Development, or IESD for short, which is a cutting-edge, award-winning organization focused on future-oriented training and deployability. We offer certification programs on hydrogen, blue hydrogen, carbon capture, storage and transportation, electrical vehicle technologies, and various others at the elementary and advanced levels. ISD also conducts industry masterclasses where all major oil and gas, energy, and technical services companies send their employees, managers, and trainers to gain practical, in-depth knowledge about developments in sustainability, renewables, energy transition, etc. Our two masterclass events in Mumbai and Delhi, respectively, have been veritable successes, with professionals from more than 50 major PSUs and MNCs in attendance. ISD has certified more than 2,500 energy industry professionals, students, and other stakeholders who have an interest in future-proofing their skills, knowledge, and professional profile. Today's webinar is significant not only because it discusses sustainability and it's being held on the occasion of Earth Day, but also because the relevance and importance of the United Nations SDGs, the ongoing energy transition, all of these are key factors in moving towards the Indian government's net zero by 2070 goals. Today's webinar is also significant because it marks the launch of IESD's newest program on sustainability and energy transition, which is live from today. I will urge all those in attendance today to please visit iesd.in to know more about this new academic program. And if you choose to register, you can avail the early bird offer, which is valid till 5th May 2024. The link will be displayed during this webinar and shared afterwards as well. Please do visit iesd.in to know more about the Sustainability and Energy Transition Program and recommend it to other professionals and students who share an interest in these areas. I would now like to take the opportunity to welcome and introduce our esteemed speakers for today's event. Our first speaker, who has lent their time today, is Mr. Harendra Rajora. Mr. Harendra Rajora is an independent consultant on energy transition and recycling value chain management. He has 4 decades of multifaceted experience in the oil and gas industry with reputed organizations like HMEL, BPCL, and SR in senior management positions. He has a strong marketing background in hydrocarbons, petrochemicals, and project infrastructure. We welcome you to the webinar, Mr. Rajora. Our second speaker for today is Mr. Sanjay Kaul. Mr. Sanjay Kaul is a practicing advisor and leader for more than 3.5 decades. He's a subject matter expert in sustainability, which includes topics such as energy transition, ESG, net zero, and future fuels. In energy, in the areas of oil and gas, power, and renewables, and in infrastructure, both public infrastructure and transportation. He's also an expert in higher education and learning management and has established multiple universities and has been a leader of energy practices with the Big Four. He is a fellow of the Energy Institute in UK. I would now like to invite Mr. Harendra Rajora to kindly help set the context and provide an overview of the salient points surrounding sustainability and the importance of the ongoing energy transition. We look forward to hearing from you about sustainability and circular economies in the Indian and global context, about some of the technologies which are driving sustainable changes and development, as well as the renewables narrative and reality in India. Over to you, Rajora sir.
Thank you, Vinayak, and good evening to all participants. You all are from industry, and I take it that you all are advocate of the environmental issues which we are facing or this world is facing. I would like to cover in my talk today one on the Earth Day. 22nd April is celebrated as Earth Day. What is its importance, and how we can use this opportunity to take a pledge that what we all can do for the environment. Second topic that I would like to cover is the uh, energy transition. That what are those various steps in an energy transition which are happening globally as well as in our country. And third topic is going to be the actual practice in industry which are taking place and what directionally is going to happen in future. I would like to cover those things here in my talk today. Over to Vinayak.
Thank you, sir, for providing us with the informative overview. We look forward to hearing from you more about these topics. Uh, I would now also like to invite Mr. Sanjay Kaul to please share your thoughts and provide an overview for the attendees to help us contextualize the sustainability and energy transition scenario. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Vinayak, and my compliments on Earth Day to all participants. Uh, the good thing about the sustainable sustainability and sustainable development is that nobody today is asking why, and everybody is asking how. Specifically, what can my organization do? What can I do as a professional, as a businessman, as an architect, as a chartered accountant, as a diplomat, as a policymaker? What is that I can do? And thankfully, uh, in 1980, uh, when SASB got established, where we had the first set of sustainable accounting standards, more and more pathways, methodologies, and technologies are emerging, which is showing the way how sustainable development is possible. However, just for context, it is important to understand as an overview that we can approach sustainability from two contexts. First context is, what does the earth do to sustain itself? Today is Earth Day, and we know that earth uses all its water, all its land, all its plant life, which is there in terms of forests and flora and fauna, and all of its species, whatever it may be, over a period of time to create food chains and to sustain life on it, to protect itself. Besides the cosmic movement, uh, it goes around the sun, etc. And in that process, it saves the planet from all the radiation which the sun emits and the cosmos emits, by creating an ozone layer to protect itself. So that itself is a very powerful model of what the most intelligent and impactful species, which is the mankind or the Homo sapien, can do to help planet Earth to do that more effectively. The other context is that sustainable development can can be viewed with two uh, different hands. On one hand, there are resources. It's always about resources, how we use them, how we consume them, how responsible we are, how we replenish them, how we optimize them, how we bring in efficiency and intensity in terms of the energy we produce from these resources. And the two hands are, on one hand, we have to make sure that we do not damage and protect the environment. On the other hand, we have to make sure that there is a sense of replenishment and the reduction of any pollution that we may cause. And we have to manage the replenishment in a manner that it is responsible, and not only responsible towards the environment, but also towards the coming generation. So, in that overview, when we are talking during this talk, one I would like to focus more, and I'm so happy that Mr. Rajora is there to focus on what can industry can do. I would like to focus more on how do we demystify that into actual action plans, methodologies, and platforms, and what can we as individuals and organizations and businesses do to play our role in it. Over to you, Vinayak.
Thank you, Mr. Kaul, for the informative overview, which definitely shed light on aspects such as access, action, individual responsibility, and the role that we all have to play within the wider energy transition movement. In the same vein, to continue the learning and the sharing of knowledge, I would like to now invite you, Mr. Kaul, to please share a presentation with us and enlighten us and clear our concepts about sustainability and its relevance in our business activities, our planning, and please do share with a special emphasis on what each of us can do to play our part in the energy transition and achieving sustainability.
Thank you, Vinayak. And as to start with, um, I would like to approach this sustainability elephant straight away. The elephant in the room, the elephant we don't talk about in any boardroom or in an election rally, or in an agreement, or when we are building our house, or when we are looking for a job. We know this elephant for with many names. It could be climate change, it could be biofuels, it could be alternate fuels, renewables, it could be TCFD, SDG, GRI, it could be SDG, the Social Development Goals. It could be incentives, policies, hydrogen, energy transition, so many things. And the moment we have one of those things, we forget the elephant, or the elephant is not so much visible to us. The idea of sustainability is that it is always greater than the sum of its parts, which means that unless we integrate whatever is required to achieve sustainability, it would not be overwhelmingly within our control and in practice. And tragically, the reverse is also true. If we fail to handle any of its component, um, we would not be able to serve its primary goal of protecting the resources and the environment for our future generations. And to understand that more specifically, if we look at the interlinkages of all this at a very, very simple level, then we can go to the next slide and see that sustainability is sustained through environment protection, which could be pollution, decarbonization, its conservation, the resources, how we responsibly use them, and of course, whatever replenishment cycles we create through recycling, reuse, uh, reduce the consumption in line with the replenishment, whether that is plastics or any kind of waste, where we make sure that there is a balance between what we are discarding and what we are destroying. So, at a very basic level, we need a balance in the way we approach resources, the way we protect and deal with the environment, and the replenishment aspect to it. If I am pushed, and we can go to the next slide, if anybody is ever pushed to understand what sustainability is, as I said, it is always greater than the sum total of its parts. So its parts are very, very important. But very, very simply, what it means is that we are going to live, develop, and prosper without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. We are not going to use up all their water. We are not going to pollute their water. It's that one line definition with which we need to understand sustainability. We will give them the same opportunity or more, rather a better heritage than what we have been able to do as part of our impact of our generation. So having that clearly in our mind is very important, and that is what even the courts and the intergovernment panels are realizing. If we can go to the next slide, that I was very excited that for the first time even the Supreme Court uh, uh, said that sustainability is one of the fundamental rights. Protecting the environment is one of, they brought it in the category of fundamental rights to live, liberty, health, etc. in a recent judgment. So it's happening, but it is good to understand that. And of course, the development is when we maintain this context, which I've just been explaining about resources, about environment, and about saving it for the future generations. So the if we want to know, okay, what are the sort of a mission statements, or what is the path towards the sustainable development, and if we can go to the next slide, it's no rocket science. It means very simple things. It means that we are managing our populations to a level which is conducive to a resource. We know that we have gone from almost half a billion to 7.4 billion in almost a century or two. I mean, it's just too much. And uh, it can continue to rise while the forests are depleting, while the water resources are at stake. And I would there are very knowledgeable people dialed in, so I wouldn't like to labor more, rather share this presentation with you about what are the specific points which ensures this sustainable development. So essentially, if in one line anybody is asked, it is choosing extinction or destruction over a period of time, or sustainable development. So the choice is very obvious. Can we go to the next slide, please? I think it is a no-brainer to understand that sustainability gets achieved through sustainable practices. So to come to my topic, essentially, if all of us which believe in sustainability and sustainability development, if we learn and skill ourselves and equip ourselves and become responsible towards sustainable practices and sustainable reporting, then the job will begin to happen through us as well. We will begin to not only appreciate but also practice that, and there is livelihood, careers, investments, businesses uh, uh, in this process. So it's not a non-economic or a non-commercial process. It's very much beneficial to mankind, and it is very much beneficial to economies and nations and to the human race. uh, Examples of sustainable development are very simple. Um, you all know them already. You may have known some of them. There are many. Anything which protects the environment, anything whenever we recycle, anything which we are doing to protect the resources for the future, is anything which we are doing to decarbonize, so there is less pressure on the environment. Anything where we use the waste to energy is sustainable development. And uh, you know uh, there are few which are listed on this slide, but uh, even if you switch off an extra fan, or you can increase a degree in your air conditioning from 23 degrees to maybe 26 degrees, which is ideal, or 27 degrees, which is actually ideal for the bodies, you've done sustainable development. Uh, it's important to know that as nations and economies, as human race, as organizations, as businesses, what are the three pillars of sustainable development? And without these three pillars, again, I'm saying, I have explained that sustainability is larger than the sum total of its components, both ways. So, the three pillars being economic, social, and environment, unless those three pillars are taken care of, all of the things which were part of that elephant would not come in control. We can do something which is economically marvelous, like unlimitedly increase our manufacturing based on fossil fuel. Uh, Maybe some social agenda will get served, but the environment would not work. On the other hand, we don't take care of the social agenda of poverty elevation, etc., and suddenly stop using coal or don't do energy transition, completely start protecting the environment from tomorrow, both our economic agenda or social agenda would not permit it. So it's important to understand how do we take all these, how do we make sure that we have three strong pillars to whatever we do, and we balance them. Next slide, please. Uh, this brings us into the realm of energy transition. I don't have to explain our participants why energy transition is necessary, but I want to focus more on the fact that if it doesn't start happening now, then whatever net zero goals we are planning for 2077 or within this generation, within this lifetime, will not simply happen. So, in a way, energy transition is something like health, welfare, or food and beverages, which has to become part of our life, and it has to start happening at homes. Somebody has two cars, we'll have to see if one of them can be electrical, and I will explain that making everything electrical which gets charged through fossil fuel is still useful because you're creating the infrastructure. um, we are ultimately offsetting the that's part of the energy transition. So energy transition at a business level, at a personal level, at a organization level, at a social, uh, at a nation level is very, very important. Uh, Simply, if we don't start, it shall not happen. So we need to take that pledge and start doing it. The energy transition, there are some success mantras, and unless we focus on them, the energy transition will happen in piecemeal basis, and it may just die out or not be as effective or comprehensive as many other trends which happens of biofuels or in fact hy- we started the economy with electrical cars. It's just that oil came and replaced everything. So this is what happens. Uh, we are still saying that nuclear is a very big and massive resource to create infrastructure for even uh, future fuels like hydrogen, because you need some fuel which is safe to to make hydrogen, but in sufficient quantities. So those equations will not settle unless our goals are common. For example, uh, there has to be a commonly accepted future energy scenario, and that is emerging through intergovernment panels, through the common platforms like SDG, etc., and the trade organizations which are recommending that, okay, what would be the standards for green ammonia or everything, so that things could be traded. There are national policies getting more than 30 to 30 plus countries have now come out with their hydrogen policies or their climate change policies, which are pretty detailed, right up to university research level support. So I think the goals of energy transitions, there is a lot of work required. Uh, for example, many people make it a war, especially the activist group, that it is either the green scenario or the fossil fuel. So they make it as if they are, both cannot coexist. That's not the reality. I think the the fossil fuel scenario, the blue hydrogen has to run parallel till green hydrogen can overtake it, because it is the blue hydrogen which will create the infrastructure rapidly to be able to allow the green hydrogen to effectively have its play. So the goals are extremely important. And the rise of the renewables is quite refreshing. I mean, while we started in 1980, uh, uh, in these 43 years, I think the rise of renewables is impressive, because it competed economically against fossil fuel, which was a formidable uh, competition. So that assures us that uh, you know uh, if we really want to now run the final leg of our race of another 30 years towards sustainable development or net zero, it's quite possible to do that, because now we even are digital, we have AI, we have satellite communication, we have lot many things and technologies uh, which weren't there in the last 50 years with us. And the next 25 years is going to be very exciting if we can find a way of storing the energy, because the renewable energy has only one lacuna, that it is not consistently available. But the rapid rise in storage technologies, I think molten salt to very advanced batteries and fuel cells are now available, uh, not to very big commercial scales, but it is proving the point that if we can produce the energy, we can store the energy, and when it is not available, in fact, my friend Mr. Rajora, who's also a speaker, told me excitedly how Tesla cars are being used currently in Australia to power the homes in the night and getting charged in the day, becoming mobile, you know, battery storage uh, kind of facilities. So next 25 years for evolution of this energy, both storage and production, is going to be quite exciting. And this is a sort of a footprint of it. But just to make the point that oil has taken two world wars, which sort of pushed it to its maximum use, and 60 years to swamp the world. And this happened without digital and microprocessor technology. So if this planet now wills, and the top 60, 70 economies out of more than 150 decide to do it, how fast this can happen. I mean, this is to present it in a positive way, that it's not like that it is that complicated, because the fossil fuel, which replaced the conventional fuels, which are now called renewable fuels, which is quite a amusing thing that, in terms of terminology, that they took just 60 years to do. Now, coming to brass and tags, sustainable development goals are quite comprehensive in terms of, I mean, you can learn all about them in the ISD program. I don't have to. But the fact is, today the reporting mechanism and formats are available. Not only they are available in an integrated way, suitable for investors, suitable for specific industries, suitable for accounting standards. So the journey how SDG becomes ESG is quite simple today, as it was not so 20 years ago. So any of the professionals, practitioners, business, um, NGO, government, state government wants, it has a ready-made mechanism how to go towards sustainable development goals, how to report it, how to make policies around it. So it's now pretty clear and commonly agreed across the world. So that's the positive part. Now the effort needs to come in, the focus needs to come in, the professionals have to rise. In terms of sustainability reporting, the guiding framework which have emerged out of all the frameworks which are put forward are the GRI, TCFD, and SASB. I would not bore you um, with what they are. Essentially, one is about GRI is about what's the impact of the organization onto society or uh, to the general environment in which it operates, and SASB is to do with standards, and TCFD has to do with the financially important uh, material reporting which impacts ESG. But if we take and integrate the three, we have the formula of how to go forward. So they are very simple. They are in easy language, English language. It is not very difficult. Anybody who would follow can follow. Practically, I'm saying this at the cost of my consultant friends. It does not even require external consultants. If somebody can become an internal champion within an organization, or if I want to start a business uh, around it, but it's quite easy to understand that SDG will only work when we take it to the level of ESG, and that is quite possible by integrating the available three platforms. And coming to I am watching the time and I don't want to take Mr. Rajora's time. I would like to straight away jump in. What is in it for all of us? Because there is a lot of technicalities which one can do on the internet or can join a program which ISDSO well developed. I think we as professionals or business or trade organizations or policymakers have to be absolutely clear about our own outcome. If I'm a policymaker and for me decarbonization is not in my electoral promise, I'm like an opportunist picking it up because our general elections are there, and you do not hear any leader to be talking about decarbonization, then you know it's not reached that level where SDG will result in ESG. So if I'm a trade organization and I don't have a very active lobby for implementation of decarbonization or ET strategy, then I know it's not. So if I'm a professional and I'm not upgrading my skills in climate change, ET, understand SDG and ESG process, or I'm not applying it at the value chain level, that how it will financially impact, where would I get the funds, etc. for it, what are the audit prerequisites, what are the standards, what are the reportings. And same way for regulators, students and researchers, NGO and community developers, or economies and nations. So all I'm trying to say to you all is on this Earth Day, before I end my presentation, is that knowing our role, deciding what role I would play, my business will play, or my organization will play, uh, and what would be its outcome, where will I take it, would ensure that all the talk around sustainability uh, would get converted it from a process which goes from SDG to ESG. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kaul, for the insightful presentation. I think it provided us some quite unique ways to approach, some unique perspectives on how to look at these topics, whether it's the elephant framework of seeing all dimensions of sustainability at once, whether it's sustainability, resources, and efficiency as a continuous cycle and process. I'm in agreement with you that all of us today have to take personal responsibility and emphasize that um, just for the sake of our continuing progress and development, we cannot compromise the future generations' experience of living in this world and enjoying all the natural resources and cleanliness. We have to take that personal responsibility at every level for sustainability. Finally, I also think your presentation, we are very grateful because it provided some objective ways and means to pursue sustainability at every level, whether it's individual or organizations, practical ways such as using more renewable and sustainable energy sources, conserving our biodiversity, polluting water and air less, adopting sustainable practices in agriculture and industry. And finally, your presentation also provided the unique perspective that it's not just environmental benefits and sustainability benefits, it's also financial, economic, business, regulatory incentives and advantages of pursuing sustainable practices. Thank you for your presentation. I would now like to invite Mr. Harinder Rajora to share his presentation on how the energy industry stakeholders can make a difference and act on what it means to achieve net zero. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Vinayak. Put the next slide, please. Next. So, especially on Earth Day, I would like to say that in India, our mindset from very traditional way is always been conservation, use everything, reuse everything. In petroleum industry, we used to have an organization called PCRA, Petroleum Conservation. They used to teach us, to the housewives, how to use LPG, which burner to use when, which vessel to use when. Those were the things which we were learning and teaching. Like even when we drive our car or vehicle, somebody get a mileage of 10 kilometer per liter, somebody gets it 12 with the same vehicle. So it's a way that we drive our vehicle. All these things actually are impacting our environment ultimately. So on this Earth Day, and especially when we are saying that each one is responsible, it is like fire safety. When we say whose baby is fire safety, and prompt answer is everybody is responsible for fire and safety. It's the same thing here for environment issues. Each one of us is responsible, whether at the workplace or even at the house. In our life, like everything that we do, we are responsible for doing something for the environment. And let us, on this Earth Day, which is celebrated every year, let us, bring that thought in our mind that each one of us is responsible, and let us find out how we can improve on that, how we can add on that. Now the biggest threat to the industry. I was hearing a conference where the fund managers were speaking, and this one of the biggest fund manager of US, and the chairman was speaking, and he was saying that now our board is not allowing us to invest in companies who are not good at the sustainability score or ESG score. And that's why they are insisting that wherever they invest, the ESG score should be known, and accordingly they will decide. Now, for any industry, the investment is a very important component. And this is going to become threat in future, that if your industry is not right on that index, then you will not get the investment, or you will get investment at a higher price. Now that's very damaging for the industry. So industry is on one part and the government is another part. While industry is taking steps which is they are available in their control, they also seek government support to make such policies which make things easy to achieve. So Indian government has already done few things which I would like to speak about. One is on the solar mission. Indian government has promoted solar energy, and if you recall, at when we started solar energy, the cost was more than the power that we used to buy, based on thermal or whatever, source, at home we used to pay, say, 5 rupees a unit, and solar power was available at 7 rupees a unit. Today, we have come to a level that solar power is available, and we have seen these tenders are being floated by various state governments. The rate has come lower than the thermal power rate. I mean, that's very, very big achievement for a country like India. And we are pushing it in a very big way. And God has been kind to, give us so much of sunshine that we can convert into solar energy. Uh, Now, when we speak about the renewal, solar and wind both comes to our mind. But as Mr. Kaul was mentioning, that it has the biggest problem is how to store that energy which we have created in 8 hours and we want to consume in 24 hours. So, industry and government both were looking for such solutions where this storage can be created. EV cars have very small battery but very costly. Now those battery cannot be used today to store this power which we can consume in next 16 hours. We produce in 8 hours and use it in for next 16 hours as well. I mean, that is where the hydrogen came as another option. Hydrogen today is very costly. It has no carbon, so no carbon dioxide. So it's the best fuel available on the earth, but it's very costly. Now, whatever has happened to solar is going to happen to hydrogen as well. But hydrogen has a good part is that it can be stored. Hydrogen is stored normally by converting it to ammonia, and you convert it back whenever you want to use it as hydrogen. And ammonia can be transported. Already, India import a lot of ammonia. So ammonia can be traded, ammonia can be transported, and it can be stored. So this is the advantage with the hydrogen as a fuel. Now, energy transition, when it is taking place, today we have fossil fuel and we are converting fossil fuel to power. We are also having coal, and India is having the largest, coal availability. We would like to use that because each country, whatever resource they have, they should be able to use it. But as our demand is increasing, we can convert the additional demand to the renewals. So the whatever we are producing from our coal and fossil fuel will remain the same number, but the percentage wise, it will keep on going down. So that is the plan of the government, and that is why, keeping all these things in mind, government have kept 2070 as net zero target and not earlier. But by 2050, we also want to become independent of, energy sources like crude coming from outside. Whether we can replace all that, by solar energy or renewable or hydrogen. And that's why government has gone into a hydrogen mission. We not only want to use hydrogen in our country, but we also want to export hydrogen as ammonia or its any other derivative. Because when we are making hydrogen and green hydrogen especially, we are saying that renewable power should be used to produce hydrogen. Now, hydrogen raw material is what? Water and solar energy or wind energy. So both we can say that it's freely available raw material, and we convert it to energy which we can use. So it's but the production cost is so huge today. It is supposed to be, we are targeting today, the cost is about $4 per kg. And blue hydrogen that we produce and use it in our refinery or in fertilizer plants or in a steel plant is costing roughly $2 per kg when we are making it with the natural gas. So between these renewable solar and wind power and hydrogen, there are other options which can help us in transition from fossil fuel to these things is a biofuel. Now you may have heard a product called bio CNG. Bio CNG is like CNG only, and government has made a policy that anybody who is making bio CNG can sell it at the CNG price of that location to make that industry viable. Government is also facilitating by giving land at a very cheap rate to such plants. So economic viability of these plants, is good. The second part, when we are making bio CNG, is to clean India. I do not know if you are aware that bio CNG today is being produced from agriculture waste, cow dung, and wet municipality waste. Our country, we never had a system of waste collection. Today, because these waste can be used in a proper manner by these bio CNG plants, we are now getting into the system of waste collection by municipality or through third parties, and it is getting into a very cost effective and economically viable option to create bio CNG. Bio CNG plants were coming at different places where enough CNG stations are not there, or it is not being consumed. So, what is the best method to use bio CNG? A new concept is use this bio CNG to make green hydrogen. Government had made a policy decision. Green hydrogen is when you use solar power, but in case you are using bio CNG, and even if you use a normal grid power, it will still be called green hydrogen. So today, if you replace natural gas by bio CNG and you produce green hydrogen, it would be available to you at $2 per kg price, which otherwise, if you were to put electrolyzer, it is cost is around $4 per kg. So these are the various things which are currently happening. Now, I would like to take it to the second part, that what industry is actually doing to achieve target for the country and target for the industry. So any industry is having three type of issues. One is energy conservation. Like we said, in the household, you conserve energy. Is energy conserved? Is energy saved? Energy produced. So on this account, like refineries, like I've worked for petroleum companies, so I would give more examples from these companies. It's a continuous process to reduce fuel and losses of a refinery, and it is true for any industry. And by various schemes of energy conservation schemes, people have been able to save, I would say they have increased their GRM by 5%, 10% on an overall basis, and it's a continuous process. Every plant does that. So this is the one aspect which they are doing. Second, Mr. Kaul was mentioning a few times digital and AI. Today, I would like to say, and I have seen this with few examples, that AI has been used using our past process data to improve and optimize our processes. And you optimize processes, it means either higher yield or reduce fuel and losses. Now, this is also helping in environment protection. So these two things, renewable, bio-based. Now we in petroleum industry produce auto fuel. What will happen to auto fuel if everything was to be converted to EV cars or EV vehicles? What would happen to this auto fuel? This auto fuel, all the refineries are slowly reducing production of auto fuel and converting it to value added product like petrochemicals and chemicals. So producing chemicals and petrochemical is actually adding to environmental issues. I mean, it is helping to reduce emissions. Government role came to control the emissions in terms of, if you recall, we used to have BS2 fuel. We went from BS2 to BS3 and then BS4, and we jumped from BS4 to BS6 right away. So global, the best fuel quality today being used is BS6, and this country is already on BS6, and all our petrol, diesel is being used is of that quality. We also went into ethanol blending. 10% of fuel is being blended by ethanol. Anything which is bio-based and we are using that as a fuel, it is helping us in reducing carbon emissions. So biodiesel, ethanol, all these things, and then bio-CNG, these three bio things are also helping in our reducing the emissions. I mean, and the last thing I would like to talk about the waste processing, and especially it's I spoke about the municipality waste and the agriculture waste, but there are also, now government has come up with a notification related to plastics, polymer. Anybody, any industry which is using polymer for packaging need to take responsibility of its reprocessing as well. This is also to help environmental issues, and industry is doing for two type of reprocessing. One is mechanical reprocessing and the second is chemical reprocessing. Now, chemical reprocessing, when you do for plastic, it goes back to the source, to the refinery and petrochemical plants, where they can run that into the in their original plant. So they get the same product, virgin material, but because it has been made by using reprocessed material, today globally it's valued at a higher level. Like, just to give an example, the price being charged is 200 to 250% of the virgin material. So this is the value addition which is also helping into environmental issues. So more and more industry is entering into reprocessing of the waste, which is one side municipality waste and agriculture waste and also the plastic waste. So these things, in my opinion, are also going to solve one of our biggest problem that this country is facing is of the, everybody says, okay, we have so much of waste lying around, it looks very dirty. And I believe that these industry initiatives would help us not only in value addition but also in clean India. Uh, I would stop my talk here. I'll be very happy to share if you have any other questions.
Thank you so much, Rajora sir. That was a very enlightening presentation and views from you as well. It was very interesting to firstly know about our Indian cultural context to begin with of conservation practices. And I think from the main takeaway from that is how we should continue to preserve and propagate these cultural practices that we have of being personally responsible for conservation and for judicious usage of resources or minimizing wastage and just being smart about our impact on the ecosystem, our immediate impact. I also liked from your presentation how we got an insight into the interplay and overlapping responsibilities of the industry and government, that government initiatives have to be supported by enthusiasm from industry players, and good intentioned activities by the industry have to be supported with positive regulatory changes. That was a very good takeaway. And finally, it was very enlightening to know about the technical aspects that you covered about whenever we are implementing or shifting to biofuels or bio CNG, various applications of hydrogen, whether it's hydrogen or whether we have to maximize energy output from solar, as well as the rules and regulations regarding things like auto fuels and polymers and other petrochemical products. So I thank you so much for sharing these various industry side perspectives as we move towards sustainability and the energy transition. I would like to now invite both speakers for any closing remarks after we've had the presentations and your perspectives. And I would also like to invite all the attendees of the webinar to please share any questions that they may have in our chat box or in the Q&A section on Zoho. So closing remarks from you, Mr. Rajora.
Well, I would like to urge all our industry members to participate in this great venture, to go for zero emissions by 2070. And government has kept this, target at 2070 for a purpose, because solar energy became a no-brainer once the price has come down to less than the price of a coal energy. Similarly, we expect the carbon capture technology, on which lot of work is happening today, the cost would come down so much that carbon capture or carbon dioxide capture would become, it would add value rather than like cost. It will have value added, product, and that would, it is taking time. I mean, so it is just to buy that time and use this, when these values are available to industry. And that's why the government has taken initiative. Lot of work is happening in India as well as globally, and we should look forward that maybe it happens much earlier than 2070, and we are able to take a positive steps towards getting net zero position in the country.
Thank you, Rajpal sir, for the closing remarks. And I would like to now invite Mr. Kaul for any closing remarks as well.
Thank you, Vinayak. My urge would be to, if you are a professional, if you are a business, if you are a trade organization, if you are a policymaker, if you are an NGO, if you are part of the regulatory framework, whoever you might be, you might be representing a government or an economy. My urge would be to get into the mechanics of it. Learn about ESG, learn about ET, get into the reporting processes of SDG, etc. Because that's where the process gets converted to application. So while it's noble to personally start practicing, but action is what is required, and goal setting is what required is. And if there are any personal aspirations, I would like that each of us has an aspiration to leave some sort of a legacy in the area what we contributed to the planet.
Thank you for the closing remarks. Thank you for the closing remarks, Sanjay Kaul sir. So I think one of the questions we've gotten is very interesting, and I hope I am audible. Am I audible to all?
Yes,
am I
you
audible?
are. Yes, you are.
Okay. I believe, Mr. Kaul, in your presentation, you had touched towards the end on ESG reporting and reporting, sustainability reporting, which ensures continuous monitoring, verification, improvement, and accountability in all the practices that we have in sustainability. So one of the questions we have received is regarding this. And it is, how can companies ensure transparency and accountability in their ESG reporting and avoid misleading targets like brand reputation, greenwashing, etc.? If you'd like to answer, Mr. Rajora can add.
I think it's a very relevant question, because in many cases that is the case. The best thing is a very genuine exercise of stakeholder involvement, of knowing their expectations, because expectation management comes first of shareholders, of the board, of consumers, customers, channel partners, business partners, regulatory agencies, industry forums one is part of. Once these expectations are known and some sort of an expectation management is done, then whatever you do appears collaborative, participative, and solid. Means you can actually achieve, you can get funds to do things in a different way. People are more patient uh, with with uh, with your actions and see more longer term benefits, and share the credit because they were party to it. So most important part is involving the stakeholders, and I'm sure that with the way this has now come into full force, getting stakeholders to uh, participate in this and come up with not only good input but agreements and even collaboration would not be that difficult as it used to be even just 5 years ago.
Question that we have gotten from Mr. Mayank is quite pertinent. He has asked, how can the collective approach be harnessed to safeguard sustainability against the detrimental impact of individual greed? So this is quite a loaded and relevant question. I'll ask firstly Mr. Kaul and then Mr. Rajora as well to please add.
I think individual need versus societal need, future generation need, economies need, or planet's needs is a conflict in whatever we do, say, or not do, or not say. So it's a question larger than sustainability, and that needs to balance itself uh, on various platforms. And most of the people have the need uh, to do both. However, when it comes to equitability, that do they have equal opportunity to become unequal? That's where the problem arises. In the sense that while others had the opportunity to waste or to pollute, I am not having that opportunity, or to better to get me out of poverty, or to scaling up or whatever. So this is a conflict, which is a larger conflict. How societies, countries, policymakers, and our leaders balance out these various needs. However, it will remain a question of any change we want to bring, and there are no ready answers. But the fact is that all I can say is today is far easier to convince a knowledgeable person or an educated person or an aware person about the need for sustainability than it was some time ago.
I I fully agree with Mr. Kaul, and I think it's a more question is of discussion and sharing, with each other. And most of the time, things can be brought to a win-win situation. Like I'll just want to give a example. When this first bio CNG plant came up in Indore, and people used to say that these are not non-viable projects, and it cannot be run profitably. And this plant has spent about 100 crore rupees to put up this plant. I mean, today it is running profitably. Just to share, the the trick was to give 30 acres of land at 1 rupee per annum of lease rental per year for 30 years. Now that made the project viable. Now the question is whether all stakeholders appreciate that the value this project is going to bring not only to the individual company but also to the society at large. It is solving a bigger problem that we want our cities to be clean, we want our country to be clean, whether we see some value in that. I mean, so it's a, I think, persuasion and maybe discussions. As Mr. Call said, that today things are easier than in the past, and it's a continuous process. We need to continuously work on this and share our thoughts with all the stakeholders. I mean,
Thank you, sir, for the informative answer. I had a question of my own for you, Rajora sir, since you provided a very valuable industry perspective of what the energy industry can personally shoulder the responsibility. And I wanted to ask you, are there any instances where we know that the industry and governmental action has to overlap, but anywhere where it's at odds with each other? So one of the previous question asks where individual greed is at odds with the collective social responsibility for sustainability. Do you
So
know of any instances where industry faces a challenge against government regulation or vice versa?
yeah, so let me give a example. I mean, in HME, there is a process published by the Highway Ministry that 10% of plastic waste can be used in road making, mixing in the bitumen, and it increases the life of the road. So the builder who is taking up the job of building roads is going to benefit out of it. So it's a win-win situation for everyone. Government has notified, it is available. However, now you want to put up a plant to produce such material from plastic waste which can be mixed into the bitumen and used in the road making. So we struggled with the Haryana government, and the state government said no, we want to sell the land at commercial price. Now if we were to buy that land, then this whole thing, like, company was not looking for profit out of this project, but they wanted to show this as a showcase that this can be done. Even then it became a non-starter. So sometime it happens and the dialogue is continuing, and as I said earlier, that the only trick is you have to continue dialogue, and maybe one day something will happen.
Thank you, sir. That's a very interesting case study to understand this by. We also have another question which is referring to one of the slides in your presentation, Rajora sir. Someone is asking regarding scope 1, 2, and 3, which were mentioned, I think, in the context of industry action. And they were asking you to elaborate on that, if you would be able to.
So scope 1 in general means what you are creating. I mean, what gases you are creating, what CO2 emissions that you are undertaking from your own processes. I mean, and how to control that is, as I said, reduce your fuel and losses, and you increase your efficiency. Those are the things which every company is working continuously because it adds to their profitability. So these are no-brainer steps which scope 1, every industry is taking in their own right. The scope 2 are related to those initiatives where you are not in charge of that facility. Like you are buying some raw material, like we are buying power from the grid. Now, can I do something about that? So can I, instead of bringing the power which is coming from a, say, thermal power plant, can I bring solar power into my system? So those are the scope 2 initiative. Number 2, like suppose I want to send out my production. So should I send it by road? Should I send it by rail? Which is a better environment friendly method? Mostly, I mean, railway, there's less, emission compared to the road thing. So you go for rail. Now, whether it is also value for the company, most of the cases it is value for the company if you are able to send it by rail, but then you need to have facility to be able to dispatch by rail. So those are the things that comes under scope 2. And scope 3 is like all the petroleum company make auto fuel, like petrol, diesel we make. And this petrol, diesel ultimately result into emissions. Now, it is not something which is in your control, but they are the scope 3 and they are the most difficult to achieve. Scope 1 and 2 are where the industry is actually working continuously, and they are taking such options by which they can reduce emissions ultimately. Yeah. I hope
Thank you.
I have made things clear.
Yes, sir. That's a helpful clarification for scopes 1, 2, and 3 in the context of companies and their own action. And with that, I would like to conclude the question and answer round as well. I understand that there are still
I
questions from
Yeah,
attendees.
Vinayji, I can see one question somebody has asked. Can we use wastage like plastic to create new energy source? I would like
Yes, sir.
to answer that question.
Certainly.
So, plastic waste to say energy or to power is, I would say, is a very, very low usage of plastic waste. Plastic waste can be used to create plastic, a virgin plastic, and that's a value addition. And today, globally, the plastic created from reprocessing of plastic is driving higher value, even up to 200%, 300%. So I would say that plastic waste should be used for not creating energy, but to create more plastic. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I nearly missed that question, but I'm glad that you answered that one as well. It's these little innovations and technologies that sometimes we are missing an angle in sustainability, and it's good to know from the experts what all can be explored. And thank you everyone who sent in your questions. Further answers to questions which were not answered in the live webinar, they can be found in our post-event updates or our social media, or alternatively, you can also mail us at bd@iesd.in. That is bd@iesd.in. I would now like to thank Mr. Rajora and Mr. Kaul for your valuable perspectives and insights throughout this session. The energy transition movement is fortunate to have thought leaders like you, combining decades of practical experience with future forward thinking. And IESD in particular is grateful to have mentors and subject matters like you and other similarly distinguished academics and professionals who guide us and help us in directing these programs. I would also like to sincerely thank the entire IESD team for their efforts to organize and facilitate the smooth running of today's event. Finally, I would like to give our sincere thanks to all those in attendance today. It is because of your interest and participation that such a valuable discourse and sharing of knowledge has been possible. Thank you all for attending, and I hope you have a good day ahead.
Thank you.